What's up, everyone? Alex Rossman here, and welcome to Rossman Radio, the social first podcast where founders and industry leaders stop pretending everything's amazing and they tell the real stories, the wins, the failures, the why did I even start this moments, all of it. Most importantly, we break down the marketing strategies that are actually working for them today, not the ones some guru made up in a hotel conference room in 2016. So if you want real-world growth strategies told by the ones who have scaled multi-million-dollar brands, just listen.
So hi, welcome to Home Service Heavyweights on Rossman Radio. My name is Lauren, and today I'm joined with Randy from Premium Cabinets here. So we're going to kick it off, and Randy, I want to give you a little time here to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I started Premium Cabinets in 2009 during the great financial crisis or the housing bust. Nobody told me that was a bad time to start a cabinet business, but it was wasn't. It was actually a great time because it forced us to learn how to do things the right way and not waste and not abuse or I call it winter time, right? We came in winter, and I think that built a strong foundation. And it started out as something I was going to do for a year or two while I figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And then I was going to have somebody else run it or turn it over. And I got in and liked it, told friends about it. They told people about it. And now we have like 35 locations spread across the country. So, yeah.
Awesome. So you kind of already gave a little bit of that background there, but really curious about what inspired you to kind of go into this industry in general. Like you mentioned that there was that home crisis going on at the time, but more curious about what really drove you to this area.
Well, it's interesting. There's a couple of things. One, I have a history of being too early to things. I was in the dot-com boom and bust. I was in the energy efficiency business before it was a thing. And I could give you 3-4 other examples, but I see things quickly and trends. And I thought, God, I'm not too early to cabinets. I mean, they haven't changed. They're a box with a fancy door on them, and they haven't changed in generations, right? So I'm definitely not too early to this business. So that was part of it. But the other thing, I kind of call this my backpacking Europe phase, but I played poker for a living for 8 years between the energy efficiency business and going into the cabinet business. And when I started playing poker, people would call me and say, hey, I got this business opportunity, or I have this job offer. And there was opportunity, I don't know, like 6 a month were coming my way, right? And then pretty soon it was 4 a month and 3 a month and 1 a month. And then pretty soon I realized when you keep saying no to people for 8 years, the offers really dry. Like there just weren't a lot of opportunities. And I wanted to go back to being a contributing member of society again, because I had some fun playing poker. I traveled. I made some decent money. It's not exactly, building up society or creating abundance in the world. So I really wanted to get into something where I could help people. And like I said, I just thought, boy, I'm going to do this for a year or two. And what it came down to when I shopped competition, I saw what they had versus like some of the manufactured products that used really good quality materials. They didn't have as many SKUs and as many options, so you were a little bit limited in design, but that affects like 5 or 10% of customers, honestly. Mm-hmm. And they were just selling better quality than a lot of the things being sold for less price. And I thought, boy, there's big opportunity here. There's great margins in the business. And that was a lot of the thinking. It was just something I thought, I can do this. There's a market, and I'll figure it out.
Awesome. I mean, that's always key too. And it's really interesting because you kind of talk about your playing poker there as well. And just kind of a quick question. Have you ever felt like you're, playing poker and being able to have that skill set? Do you think it's really translated to being a business owner and knowing when to take the right deals?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of skill sets that probably weren't immediately obvious at the time. Now, I will tell you, I lost some of my people skills, management skills, communication. There were things that I definitely lost during that period, or I had to rebuild some skills that I'd previously developed because they just atrophied. But there are certainly things, like thinking in terms of percentages is
Sure.
one I'm very good at, and I think I had that skill, but I developed it a lot more in poker. So, in poker, a lot of times it's like, well, this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen. And sometimes it's what the player does. Sometimes it's the next card that's dealt that changes the board. And you have to think in percentage of, okay, I'm 50% this will happen, 25% this will happen, 25% this will happen, is a really simple example. And is my bet, or is this call worth it? Do I have expected value? And I don't think that's much different than business, right? If we go into business, and I think we look at the winners and we go, oh, they had it figured out, and 100% of the time that was going to work. And we look at the failures and we go, oh, well, they just had a bad idea and that wasn't going to work. Well, I think it's a little more random than that, right? Like, there are winners that are winners because, now I don't want to take this away from them, but maybe they landed that one client that a competitor who didn't make it didn't land that one client, or they didn't learn that one thing, or they didn't get the right salesperson or hire the right people. I mean, there's a lot of variables in running a business, much like poker. And so thinking about all of the different possible paths, and, the path not taken even, right? I definitely think that reading people, and there's a lot of psychology in poker, and I was good at the math, but my game was more about the psychology and almost doing the opposite of what people expect a lot, and trying to stay ahead. So, I think a lot of that applies to business and risk management, bankroll management. I mean, I ran my poker much like a business, the way I kept stats and details.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, now that you've really grown premium cabinets into what it is today, what do you think has been the key to that kind of growth and longevity in this space?
So I think for us, a lot of it comes down to systems.
Sure.
And when I first started, I didn't have systems. Like, the people that brought me in, they had this ad they were running on Craigslist, right? So I copied it, and then, okay, it worked. Well, then I was trying to find other things. Well, these days we don't use Craigslist at all, right? We use Google, and we use, Yelp, and we use, used to be Angie's List, even that's gone away, but Facebook Marketplace and a lot of other things in Facebook in general, we market on. So it's that, but it's even something as simple as getting a review.
Yeah.
Right? Like, most people know that getting a review is really, really important to your business. And because it's obvious, right? If we go and we're looking for a restaurant, most of us pick the one that has the higher rating, more stars. Well, that applies to pretty much every business, yet most people don't have an active plan to get reviews, right? If they think about it, they'll ask. And I was no different. So I had to create, here's the email that I send people, or here's the text, or here's the script. And then I had to document that, right? And for other dealers, like for myself, I could just learn it. But for other dealers, I had to document. I create what are called playbooks. That's like a 1-page, here's how you do it. Sometimes we have training videos, we have training calls. So it's creating the systems and then teaching them, training people on how to implement them. I will tell you, the other thing that's missing in that is the day-to-day management. And that is not one of our strengths as a company, frankly. Yeah. We're really good at creating the systems. We're really good at teaching them, but the day-to-day management, not us. It's not what we excel at. And so for that reason, what we've learned is we need to work with entrepreneurial people. We need to look for people that want to run their business, people that have an employee mindset. It just isn't a good fit with us. So that becomes a big part of our recruiting process when we're looking for dealers, is finding people that, can go out and get things done on their own.
Yeah. And you started to talk about these systems here. And what were some of the first systems or processes that you've built into the company that you felt like have made the biggest difference? You've kind of touched on some training, but what have you felt like has really made that shift?
For me, I'm a big Army's going to beat a small Army guy, and that comes to marketing. And I've always not been afraid to throw money at marketing and test. I was constantly testing, like at any point I was testing at least 1 to 2 new marketing processes, right?
That's awesome.
And so figuring out what was working, what wasn't working, and then going, okay, here's the ad you run, here's the verbiage, here's the pictures, here's the budget, here's the audience, and giving them a very, where they literally can't screw it up. So I believe the first pillar of our business, we call it driving 2 quotes or 2 quotes a day. And it's 2 quotes per salesperson that's in a location. And if they have that, they'll do 10 a week and they will be extremely successful. That used to be kind of just the standard. I will tell you that the last 2.5 years, the market has slowed. None of our dealers are hitting 2 quotes a day, right? I mean, they're just, that number has dropped, and it used to kind of be the standard. So we're having to be more efficient. And I guess that leads me to the second thing, which is the sales process, which this was a difficult one for me, because when I started, I went in and I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't have anybody training me, and I was just kind of, throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks. And I was figuring out what worked. I was recording my presentation and listening to it at least once a week, minimum. And I would listen to the presentation and go, oh God, why'd you say that? Or that doesn't help you sell, and really thinking about it. But I sell in a really unorthodox way that I didn't really know how to teach other people.
Sure.
And because my style was so different than all the conventional things. Well, I then came across the Sandler selling system, and it was very, very similar, and even more than similar, it was so aligned with how I sold. So I went through their training partially to get better, but I also went through their training, and the biggest thing I got was I learned the verbiage and how to teach it, right? The way they taught it was a little bit different. So I had already created a sales manual and playbooks and videos, and I already had a sales process. But what it did is it would talk about one topic. I'd go to a 90-minute or 2-hour class every week, every Monday. I would go back to my office, lock myself in my office for, I forget now, it was an hour or two. I think it was a couple hours. And I would work on implementing what I learned that day. And then I would think, oh, if I tweak this, and then I would test it. Customers would go in that week. And even if I didn't do the whole presentation, because I had salespeople doing it, I would work on a section and see how it went over, and I would tweak it, and I would spend a week working on that lesson and implementing it. And then the next week and the next week and the next week for whatever it took to go through their little thing. It was, I think, 20 some weeks, if I'm not mistaken. That gave me ideas. It improved my sales process, but more than anything, it taught me how to teach it to my team. So that's an area where, I went deep, right? I spent, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of hours, like really refining that thing and figuring it out.
Yeah. Right? It seems like you really took a lot of time to figure out how to really adopt that for your team and make sure that this was like an easy and efficient learn, which is really crucial for a lot of business owners today, to make sure that exactly what you're doing is how it's coming out is easy for others to translate into what they're doing in their day-to-day to ensure that success. So I think, like, while that was a big investment of your time, it's something that definitely pays off in the long run.
Yeah. And then, there were still challenges, right? Because some of the stuff the way I said it in my verbiage didn't appeal to everybody else. So I had to take that feedback and go in and go, okay, well, even if I don't think this is, it might be 80% as good as the way I said it, it's better because I can get people to actually say this or get people to follow this, or it's more comfortable for them, right? So
Sure.
A lot of our processes in the playbooks are more like, here's the objective of what we're trying to accomplish. Here's why we do it. Here are some tips that will help you be better. And here's an example of potential verbiage. But we're not trying to teach them to be robots or word for word. If they understand what it is they're accomplishing, why they're doing it, they have some tips, and they change the words, but they get the same thing accomplished, that's great. So our training is less, here's a script, and more, here's what you need to know and what you need to understand.
Absolutely. And how are you currently using AI to improve any of these systems and processes, and also improve those operations and marketing?
I think our biggest thing with AI initially was just making us more efficient, right? That, for example, if I had to go back and rewrite those playbooks now, which we've gone back through them multiple times. But if I was rewriting them now, it would be much easier to write them with AI. Like the time savings would be tremendous.
Yeah.
And so it's things like that. It's instead of having to find pictures, having AI create pictures for social media, or having it create marketing campaigns. Say, hey, here's what here are the pain points that I want to lean into in this ad. Write me an ad, for this audience, blah, 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 giving it very specific, detailed prompting. So we've used it for that. More recently, we're a cabinet company, but what we really sell is business services, and we sell a business opportunity for our dealers, right? Our dealers are independent, but we give them systems and processes that are really like a franchise, except they're independent. So there's some challenges where they don't have to follow them if they don't want to, right? Like we just can't legally force them to. And we realize there's lots of things that go back earlier. I said the review process. We have a really simple review process, right? Like if somebody spent 5 or 10 minutes a week doing that every day for a year, that alone would double their business. At least, probably more in most cases, right? And yet most people don't do it. I mean, how hard is it to block 5 or 10 minutes a week to send some text messages and some emails that you cut and paste and put the person's name into, right? Really simple. And most people just get busy with, they're like, oh, this customer, I got to get this shipped and this delivery, or I've got a warranty over here, or, oh God, a new customer just came in and I got to give them a quote, because we try to turn quotes around in a maximum of 24 hours, but generally we get it to them the same day. So, I call it like management by firefighting. And I think a lot of people, they get into doing that, and they're next fire and they're going. And some people even thrive on that, especially a lot of entrepreneurs. Something in that, maybe not the really good entrepreneurs, but a lot of entrepreneurs do that. And so getting people to follow those systems were hard. So I started thinking, boy, with AI and even more automation, how can we do this for them? So we have started creating, like, we've got a review system now that with a CRM that we have, it just kind of automatically asks. Same thing with, by the way, asking for referrals. In a previous job 30 years ago, my partner, Gary, and I were, I would say, experts at getting referrals. And I realized we never ask for referrals. We get referrals, just, we do a good job and somebody tells their neighbor, but we never ask. Well, we've automated that system now and that process. And it's part of a drip marketing. We just have a real, we're not hitting people 10 times a week or whatever. We send them a message, and then a month or two later we send them another one. And, it's a pretty light touch, but we're asking for referrals. So there's a lot of things that even myself doing that, I never made time to ask for referrals. I was inconsistent asking for reviews, right? Like, I generated, I don't know, a couple hundred 5-star reviews on Google plus Yelp and other things, but I didn't. I should have had 5 times that. I mean, I should have had 1,000, right? I mean, it was, if I would have really executed, there was, I had embarrassingly low numbers. I mean, I will tell you, in 1 year, so I no longer run the Austin location, but I ran it for over 10 years. Of those 200 Google reviews, we got over 100 of them in 1 year when we really focused on it. Well, what if we would have done that for 10 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And you kind of touched on the automation part of it too. So I wanted to also ask, when you're deciding these processes and building them, like, how do you decide what's going to become automated and what still needs to be handled by someone? As we know, AI, that's a big concern about a lot of people is, hey, is AI taking these jobs? But obviously we know there's still going to be space for where there is going to be that human interaction. So how do you decide that?
Well, my experience to do things, AI does so much stuff so well if you know how to prompt. All right.
Yep.
But my experience, it also needs a human that understands that domain. For example, if I have it help me with an ad or with verbiage or with a headline or a picture or anything with a marketing campaign, I'll probably do a pretty good ad. But with my experience, I've been running ads for 30 some years. Well, I can take that and look at it and go, okay, this is good, but this verbiage is bad. right?
Mhm.
Or this picture isn't what we have here, or this headline doesn't lean into the pain points that we want, that, you know, we really want to lean into in our marketing. So working with it, or I'll give you another example. As we're really leaning into this business services, not just for our dealers, but we're very close. Within the next month or two, we'll be offering that outside of our current dealers to other
Sure.
businesses that just want help. And we're working, you know, refining those systems in-house. But for this outside business, I wanted to create a spreadsheet to go through and go, okay, if we bring on this many businesses and we have these packages, what will it cost? And a really detailed planning spreadsheet to see if the money worked, and can I offer this stuff at a reasonable price for these customers where they get more value than I'm doing it, and still make real margins, pay the bills, you know, everything we want out of the business. So I said, this is what I want in my spreadsheet. And the first version came back, and I'm using Gemini and Google Sheets, right? So I think, well, Gemini is a Google, and Google Sheets, they should work well together.
Yeah.
I looked at it, but I knew something was wrong, right? I could just tell. So I looked in, and I had two options where they, you know, pay month by month, or they pay for a year. And I realized the number at the bottom, the cash flow wasn't right. And I was like, oh, all of these 12-month prepays, which are at a discount, were being counted as 1 month. And there were 3 or 4 little things like that.
Sure.
So on one hand, it saved me hours. I mean, I made a really complex spreadsheet. Okay. So it saved me hours. On the other hand, I had to correct it. Not so different than an employee a lot of times, right?
Mhm.
Like an employee might do it, and you got to check their work, and you go, you made an error here. Like, you know,
Mhm.
this column should have multiplied by 12.
Yeah.
Different, right? Like if the numbers don't come in. So I think part of it for people is having realistic expectations, right? And it's, you know, in some things, how accurate. In the early days, I spent a lot of time trying to create a chat bot to book appointments. We do a lot of marketing on Facebook, and I couldn't get it to stop hallucinating. I spent months and months and months working on this. And when it first started, it would lie like 30% of the time. And I kept tweaking it and teaching it. And I got it to where it was maybe lying 5 to 10% of the time. But I can't have it lying to 5 to 10% of my customers, right? And making up answers.
Yeah.
Because then they come in and we don't have the proper expectations. So I just kind of abandoned that approach. But now we have created, you know, technology's gotten better. It's not just chatting with them. We've created an AI. We're just getting ready to implement and getting through the final parts of testing it, but an AI call answering, where it will call, answer the call, book the appointment, answer people's questions, send them a self-measure kit, you know, and anything else they need to be properly prepared for the appointment. So
Yeah.
I think it's identifying what tasks can it do, even if you have to correct it or manage it, much like you would a person. I mean, I've almost started thinking about it as a place on my org chart.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking of it.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, just kind of touching upon what you mentioned about the scheduling, I think that's also super key for a lot of people who run or have a lot of call centers in their business, where actually it can be seen as a positive, where you might not need someone who's working on the overtime or the after hour shifts, where that actually can begin to be automated, and it might actually lend itself to a little bit more of a work-life balance for those that are in that call center. Because I know that it can be challenging to staff those odd hours that people do have. So kind of thinking about that too, when you're speaking about, there's a lot of different AI opportunities here, and this can be very overwhelming for some business owners. How and what would you recommend if you were speaking to a new business owner about where to start leveraging AI so that way they don't get overwhelmed with that process?
I think they should take a process that they've already figured out with people or on paper or whatever, right? And document it. Here's what we need to do. Once you've figured that out, you can look at it and say, what is AI capable of doing, right? Is it capable of looking at my email and putting this on my calendar, or is it capable of blank? And if you don't know, just ask it. One of the great things about AI is you can say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Is this a good use for AI?
Yeah.
And then if so, great, write me a prompt to give to you to, start doing this. And so a lot of things, if people don't know, I would just encourage them, because a lot of people I think are intimidated, right? They
Yes.
think, oh, I keep hearing about AI and I should use this, but I don't know how. It's exactly what you're asking, right? And instead of me going through everything, just ask AI. While it will hallucinate sometimes when you give it directions, if you just ask it, are you good at this? Or is this a good use for AI? And if so, how to do it? My experience is it gives pretty good answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of go back to the marketing side of things real quick, because I know you talked about that in the beginning about the different marketing strategies that you had A/B tested and really looking at things. How have your marketing strategies evolved as a business as it shifted over the years? Like, obviously, you talked a little bit about Craigslist, which we know is an obsolete player in this day and age. But how has that shifted as your business model has shifted?
Boy, it's been a lot. I mean, we went from when I first started, this is how long ago it was. Excuse me. It was Craigslist. I was in like 30 or 40 different newspapers within a 60-mile radius.
Yeah.
I was doing billboards, I was doing magazines, I was doing all this different stuff. I just, like I said, I threw a whole bunch of crap at the wall to see what stuck. And most of it didn't make money. And then we figured out Craigslist at the time was free and was really effective. And I mastered Craigslist. Well, then the next thing was figuring out, building a website. Right, most cabinet companies didn't have a website 15 years ago, which is hard to believe even back then, but they aren't the most cutting edge usually. So I built a website. I learned SEO. Eventually, I figured out it's a full-time job doing SEO on the website because I have to keep educating myself. So I've been hiring it out for 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it's been, and having somebody else do it. And then Google pay-per-click, Yelp. For a long time, Yelp's not that effective anymore, but for a long time, Yelp was really effective. We had a nice run where we had Angie's List. We didn't get a lot of leads, but we got very high quality leads, right? And some markets, magazines still work pretty well. Austin market where I'm at, not so much. People want to go online. And so it's that. But at some point when Facebook started taking over, we realized Craigslist was dead and Facebook had eaten it. So we started using Facebook instead of Craigslist, or initially both. Now we don't even waste our time posting on Craigslist. But one of the big breakthroughs came by kind of accident. We had a dealer and she ordered a wrong kitchen. She like an entire wrong color. I don't know what color it was supposed to be, but these white shaker cabinets came in. And she's got them sitting there and she's like, what am I going to do with these now? They're built, they're ready to install. And she took a picture of them and just tried to sell them on Facebook. Right. And somebody called and they're like, well, those won't work for me, but you sell full kitchens? And it turns out like in the first month, she sold 6 or 8 kitchens or some, I forget the exact number, but really significant, like well over $100,000 worth of business from this stupid ad. She was just trying to get rid of her orphans, and people would come in and they would go, oh, well, that's not going to work for me, but I'll do this. So now we run that ad all over the country.
Yeah.
That's our most effective marketing. And it's funny, we test it. It's got these ugly they look like they're sitting in a warehouse and it's not well lit. And we take pictures like that. And every dealer we have will take that ad, they'll change it, and they'll put beautiful finished kitchens in. And it performs like 1/3 as well. Everyone. And we'll look at it and be like, why are your calls down? And then we look at it, we see that. We're like, can we go back to what works? And they're like, but it's so ugly. And it's almost offensive to them that it works. They don't want it to work, right? And it's not logical, but it does. So that one happened by accident. But most of the stuff happened just by a lot of trial and error. I mean, I did radio advertising before I sold the Austin location, and it wasn't huge success, but I got some big jobs and it definitely paid for itself. And it's also hard to know What's really hard with marketing is what is actually working and what to attribute things in.
Yep.
Because when people would come in, you'd say, hey, how'd you hear about us? Oh, on the internet. Well, where on the internet? On Google.
Yeah.
They might have went from Facebook. They might have gone from Yelp. They might have gone from Angie's List or Houzz or Pinterest, or they might have been from, but almost never did anybody say those, right? I could look at the traffic to the website and see the percentages that came from each, but almost everybody would say Google. I'd have people that came out of magazines and called a phone number that was only in that magazine and referenced an offer that was only in that magazine, and they'd say, I found you on Google.
Yeah.
So what I don't know about the radio is, A, how many people heard us on the radio and went to Google, but also part of the reason might be, if whether it's the radio or that magazine, sometimes they see us in the magazine or they hear us on the radio, and then they go Google us to look at our reviews, and they go, oh, they got great reviews, and they come in. So maybe they wouldn't have come without Google, right? Like sometimes it's the radio that gets them to go, and then Google pushes them over, or vice versa. Or, you know, it also could be that they hear you on the radio, or they see a Facebook ad all the time, and they're like, premium cabinets, premium, and they don't even know. And then when they Google it, they go, oh, I know this company, Premium Cabinets, right?
Yeah.
So it's very, very hard to quantify some of that stuff.
And it's funny you say that, because that's one thing that I deal with a lot in the day-to-day, is telling people that it's so important to have all of those channels working together. Because when you try to say, what a lot of people try to do is they, as you were saying, they want to trim back the areas that they feel like aren't working, but in reality, it's the potential client is getting hit from the radio ad, which then maybe they see you in the magazine, to which then they're going to further research you to make sure that you're legit, which is then going to come from the Google. So even when looking at analytics, it can be hard to find that, because even attribution models nowadays, every system takes a little piece of the pie, or a little bit of the earnings, if you will, even if you go to look at the analytics. So it's definitely a balance, but I do think having multiple channels present is a constant need for business owners today.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a great example of that. Not from me, but a good friend of mine ran a business in the, we'll just say home improvement space. And so one of the best marketers I have ever met, but he approached it more from a CFO, analytical, what works, and all of this, and really into the numbers, like just goes deep. Well, I remember having lunch with him, and he's like, yeah, I'm dropping direct mail because it's not working. We're spending whatever, I don't know how many thousands of dollars a month on direct mail. It's not working. We're getting nobody off of it. I said, okay. Like 3 months later, he comes and he says, I'm starting direct mail again. I'm like, why is that? And he goes, well, we stopped it and nobody came from it, but their traffic for those 3 months had dropped significantly. He turned it back on and traffic went way up. So while nobody wanted to admit they came from a direct mail piece, that combined with his other marketing or whatever else, or they were saying they came from Google, like it was, it's basically like a light switch. When he stopped direct mail, traffic slowed down. When he started it again, it went up, and he had no attribution to it because nobody came in and said, yeah, I got your mailer. Right?
Yeah. But people, you never know that people are saving things like that. So I think that's a great point too. And then kind of thinking about your business right now, as I know that you have partners, but you also have different store locations. How do you balance marketing between the two different types of audiences that you currently have?
Well, it's our independent dealers. They do the marketing. Now we help them. In fact, when they're new, we actually will set the ads for them, right? We'll get on a video call and we'll set the ads for them to make sure that everything's set up right. And that's part of the training. But it's really each individual business owner does their marketing for their location, for their territory.
Great.
For dealers, we get a lot of dealers, people that just go to our website and they hit the become a dealer page when they go to premiumcabinets.com. We advertise on bizbuy.sell, or buy biz, I might have it backwards. I think it's bizbuy.sell. And, we get people there that are coming in, and, we're advertising for the type of person that we want. So, but a lot of our dealers have come from word of mouth. Like our current dealers will tell a friend, a family member, or somebody that, So we've really gotten a lot of it that way.
Yeah. And kind of tying the AI conversation here together, have you found AI to be helpful in any of your marketing strategies currently?
Yeah, we use it a lot in social media. Like when we do Facebook posts or Instagram posts or whatever, we definitely use AI for that. We've used it to write headlines, like I said, make pictures, copy, by copy, I mean content or,
Yes.
verbiage.
I was just kind of questioning also too, because I know that you have been using that, as you said, like you're using it for more for the actual work of getting, like you said, that verbiage, that copy, that content, making sure things are in place and really kind of streamlining some of that. And that does take some trust to be able to let that go and make sure that, hey, we can have AI run these systems. Has there been any like mindset shift in being a business owner that has kind of let you let control go in that sense of being, hey, we have these systems built that we can really trust people to run them? Like, what was kind of that shift for you to allow people and allow trust to be in your systems, that you knew that they were going to work and that you knew that they were going to hold together?
Good question. So I tend to be an early adopter, right?
Yes.
I get things, I want to dig in, figure it out. I'm an early adopter, and I'm not scared of change and new technology. Sure. In fact, it's a little bit of a weakness also. I am so much, I'm in love with change sometimes, and I have to very actively be like, wait, this works. Why would I change it? So one of my biggest challenges a lot of times is what to say no to and not to change things, and what to change. But it was getting my team. A lot of my team is the opposite. They are systems people and process people, and changing that is very uncomfortable with them. And they're not all there yet, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
But I've kind of tried to take each of them at their own pace. I've got one guy who has really embraced it, uses it on a daily basis. But it was, and sometimes I give them a topic and say, use AI for this, and schedule a Zoom call, and we'll get on it, or a Google Meet call, and share your screen, and I'll walk you through, and I'll teach you how to prompt, right?
Sure.
So some of that is the management and the people and training. Like, I know it's easy for me to say, if you don't know how to use AI, just ask AI how to use it. And I stand by that. It's true.
Yeah.
And I also know most people won't actually do that. They're just intimidated. So sitting down, I've spent an hour, 2 hours with people going through an exercise, and they're like, oh, wow, it can do this. So it's just getting their confidence to grow and what it can and it cannot do. There's definitely some fear that it's going to take their jobs. Has also been a resistance. And I keep telling them, I don't remember who I'm stealing this from. Probably lots of people are stealing it from each other, but AI is not going to take your job. Somebody using AI will take your job.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No, I think that's,
And, I want it to allow us to be more productive, get more done, service more people with the same staff that we have now. I'm not necessarily looking to, I would love if I don't have to add a bunch of staff, but if my staff can get more done because they're more efficient, then, or work on things that are more interesting. Sometimes it's automating what's really boring.
Yeah.
Don't want to do.
Yep.
Much like delegation in the past, right? I would take things, I didn't like doing accounting and bookkeeping and taxes and all that. So hiring somebody to do that is not much different than, taking a task you don't like and applying AI.
Absolutely. And you've said it now a few times in the call, which I think has been great, is that you're an early adopter. You really like to look ahead and see what you can apply and get ahead of that curve. So with that being said, looking ahead at your industry, what do you think is the next evolution of using AI within your current industry?
Boy, what I would love is, I am not a fan of ProKitchen, 2020, any of those software companies. I think they're borderline criminal, and they've got this corner on the market, and they just keep raising their prices. And in a lot of ways, their software actually gets worse, and you need a bigger and bigger computer to run it on, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're really close to AI being able to design a kitchen. In fact, I haven't played with it for a few months. The last time I did, I took a picture of just a blank stud wall, right? And you could see where the water line was and this and that. I put it in and said, design a kitchen, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was really almost there, right? So I would love if AI could take that design process, make it more efficient, and eventually even the sales process, right? Like there's learning to sell cabinets, it's kind of hard. Like
Yeah.
it's people come into us looking for cabinets. So on one hand, it's a really easy sale, but there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things that can go wrong. You know, I always say it's different than, say, flooring. You go into flooring, you measure, and you say, okay, I'm going to add, you know, it's 1,000 square feet. I'm going to order 1,150 square feet because there's going to be waste, there's going to be miscuts, there's going to be blah, 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 right?
Yes.
If they open up and there's a piece that's damaged, they throw it away and they take the next piece because they got 15% extra worked in. Well, you can't do that with cabinets because this cabinet goes here and this cabinet goes here, and you have to measure a wall. And if you don't measure it right, the cabinets either are too big and they won't fit between those walls, or they're too small and you've got gaps, and both are a bad thing, right?
Sure.
So it's that, but it's even, I find there's so many rabbit trails for people to follow, right? And the next thing I know, they're talking about plumbing and this and that, and they're having these conversations that all we're really trying to do in our company is figure out, do they, if I'm talking to a customer, do they want me to be their cabinet guy?
Yeah.
Right? We don't sell anything else. We focus on cabinets. It's what we're good at. And that's our focus, right? And so the question is, do they want me to be their cabinet guy, or do they want this person to be their cabinet gal? Right?
Yeah.
And all of that other distraction and that noise. So I would love if AI could help, you know, maybe the next phase of that, which we haven't really started developing, is have an AI that listens in and gives advice while they're talking.
Yeah.
Hey, you might not want to be going down this path, or, you know, do this, or just, you know, improving that.
Yeah.
But I've got a dealer. I've actually got a sales rep that he bought this AI thing that he hangs around his neck like a necklace, and it records everything he says, and it gives him feedback on, he does a presentation and he goes, okay, tell me how that went, give me a summary, and tell me what I could have done better, or where did I miss the mark, or what, you know.
Interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's super cool. I love the feedback thought. I also love the ability to maybe have it as guardrails to conversations. And I think your point about design is really huge, because there's already people who are using ChatGPT to like upload even areas of their rooms and like, hey, how would you decorate this from that standpoint? And honestly, if you want to trim that back some, the ability to maybe even give just measurements on a very plain scale when, you know, you're having those mock-ups could be great. Even when you were talking, it had me thinking about if people wanted like a free estimate of the sizing of their kitchen, it might be that AI is able to give that to them and give them a quick estimate. Because as you know, some of that can be the work of just even taking time out of other people's day, where maybe that can automate some of that process. So like you said, you're getting people in their end decision.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. It's, you know, it makes me think I really do need to play with this.
Yeah.
There have been so many upgrades in these image creators
Sure.
in the last few months that it was so close before. I bet it's there. And one of the big things is the new Gemini image creator. I don't know if you've played. I say new. It's 2, 3, 4 weeks old now, probably.
Yeah.
I forget what they call it. It's got some silly name, but it doesn't matter. You can. In the past, you would make an image and you'd say, "Oh, that's good, but change this."
Sure.
And then it would just make a whole new image. Well, now with Gemini, it actually does that. You can be like, look, this image is good. You know, change that bar cabinet from a regular base to a drawer base, and it doesn't rewrite the whole thing. It'll just change that one thing. And it's pretty good. I've played with that a little bit. And that was one of the big challenges, is it might be 90 or 95% right, but then every time you would have it, give it a new prompt and try and correct it, it would now fix what you wanted, but you'd have a different problem over here and a different, you know, and it just, you could never get it 100% right. And I think now with that Gemini image creator, I need to play with it, because there's a good chance that that's no longer a problem. I mean, I won't know until I play with it. It might still be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that stuff's always evolving. And honestly, it's crazy how much it's learning off of what it's getting feedback on too.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, last question here to round us out, and that is, if you could give one piece of advice to business owners who want to build a more scalable, system-driven company, what would that be?
And really put yourself in those systems, figure them out, and get a baseline and test, by the way. It's not, it, I find most business owners, they go, this is the way to do it. And it might be, but it's probably not. It's probably not the best way. And they create a process and then they just do it that way because that's how they've always done it. And it's never occurred to them to try anything else. So I love testing different stuff. Part of that comes with me liking change. But before you test, you have to have a baseline, right? Like how is it working? If I change the headline, does the ad work the same, better, or worse? If I change, and then figure that out, then have a baseline and go, okay, if I change the verbiage, what happens? If I change the pictures, what happens? So I think it's creating systems and actually using the numbers to see, do these, in testing, can I make it better?
Sure.
Right. And and being really clear, having very detailed processes that if they're going to scale, right, that other people can follow.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I really enjoyed our conversation today surrounding this. I think you have some really great points about creating these systems, utilizing AI, and then being able just to adopt them early. I think that's a big pain point for a lot of business owners, is being willing to adopt these new systems and being open to change. As you probably know and hear a lot of business owners sometimes are hesitant to add new things or change things out. And it sounds like you're very much ahead of the curve of like, hey, if it's going to automate something, if it's going to help us, let's throw it into the mix. So I think
sometimes too much so, but yeah.
Yeah, to a fault sometimes. But hey, I appreciate you being here today, Randy, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.